It's Friday, everyone. What do we do on Fridays here at the Hint Hive? That's right, we smash the patriarchy. Hey there, beautiful souls. Welcome back to the Hint Hive, Amplifying Women's Voices. I'm your host, Kelly Hint, Queen Bee of this hive, feminist life coach, psychotherapist, and your weekly reminder that women are powerful as hell. Today we're diving into a topic that lights a fire in my feminist soul. One that so many of us have felt, seen, and screamed about in private and public spaces alike. We're talking about the influence of women in politics beyond token representation. Because let's get one thing straight. Just being in the room is not the same as having a voice in the decisions made there. We are talking about real, transformative, shake the status quo influence. So, grab your coffee, your power stance, or your rage journal, and let's get into it. Okay, so let's ground this conversation in some hard truth. As of 2025, women hold about 27% of the U.S. Congress. Globally, the number of women in national parliaments is around 26.5%. Now, that's better than it was in the 1970s for sure. But guess what? Better than before is not good enough anymore. The goal is not incremental crumbs of change. The goal is equity. Full on, unapologetic, structural equity. You know, women have been making serious waves in politics for decades. We've seen trailblazers like Shirley Chisholm, Angela Merkel, Jacinda Ardern, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and so many others lead with power, compassion, and resilience. These women haven't just been placeholders. They have been change agents. But even when women do gain political office, they're too often treated like novelty items. Look at us, we included a woman. Aren't we progressive? No, we need more than that. And I know that there are a lot of racial minorities out there that get what I'm saying, that tokenism, right? You gotta sprinkle some diversity throughout this TV show just to make it, look equal. When in reality, it's all surfacey stuff without actual substance. And that, my friends, is tokenism. Tokenism is performative. It's when systems claim inclusion without transferring real power. It's when you're invited to the party, but not allowed to dance, speak, or touch the playlist. And that is not progress. That's maintaining the status quo with better optics. I cannot tell you how many conversations I've had with men who don't believe, in this, again, this is in the US, men who don't believe that women are not equal or treated any differently than men. And that drives me crazy. They say things like, oh, there was a woman vice president. There are women in politics. There are women in workplaces, blah, 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 blah. Well, guess what? Just because we have some representation doesn't make us equal. And I mean, I don't mean to poke any buttons here, because I don't care what your stance is on this issue, but my body as a woman is regulated by the government. and your male body is not. And so there is an inequality, and that's just one small issue. And I've said in prior episodes before, like I got really mad watching this episode of Bill Maher because he was basically making fun of women in the United States who were fighting for equality, saying that we are not oppressed. But he was comparing women in the US, in his mind, to women in third world countries, for example, that can't show their faces or their bodies, or who are the victims of genital mutilation. And as I said in prior episodes, yes, I get it. Women have it better in some ways here in the US, but that's not freaking good enough. I'm sorry, until there is full-on equity and equality, it's not freaking good enough. And I'm sick and tired of being talked down to in such a condescending manner and treated like I don't know that there are women that have it worse in other countries. I get it, but that is not good enough. Women should be banding together to fight this on a global scale. But you know what? Here in the US, we still have battles to fight. So don't take that away from us. It pisses me off, and it just feels like it comes from such a place of privilege when a man says that to me. Oh, there are women doctors and women lawyers and blah, blah, blah. Congratulations. Congratulations that you can optically see that women are sprinkled in throughout your life. However, the statistics say otherwise. Just because you happen to see some female faces, that does not mean we have equity or equality, and it's BS. And I'm not going to stand for that. You know, when women aren't just occupying space, but actually commanding it, steering the conversations, influencing the agendas, and reshaping the very rules of the game, things shift in ways that ripple far beyond the walls of political chambers or boardrooms or wherever there happens to be the conversation happening. And I'm sorry, you men, and I'm not talking to all of you. You know, if you're getting pissed off right now, you're probably one of the ones that I'm talking to. The men that cannot acknowledge that women bring value to a space, you're part of the problem. You are part of the reason that we are feeling oppressed, because you're minimizing what we're going through. And dare I say it, these men that have to continuously minimize the oppression that women are experiencing, and the men who don't want women in their male spaces, what they determine as male spaces, you're scared of us. Admit it. Oh, wait, you can't because you're weak. Any man who holds down a woman is weak. There, I said it. And so all of the men trying to push women out of politics, out of corporate America, out of spaces where we belong, you are weak, you are pathetic, and you don't bring anything to the table. Okay, I'm going off a little bit on a tangent. It's hard not to when I talk about some of this stuff, especially when I see things happening here in the US that are just completely and totally unacceptable. So, back to politics. Let's talk about inclusive policy creation. Because when women hold legislative power, we see a greater focus on policies that improve the health and well-being of entire communities. From equitable healthcare access and robust child welfare programs to progressive education reform, reproductive rights protections, and comprehensive domestic violence prevention. These priorities aren't niche women's issues. They are societal freaking imperatives that affect everyone. And when women lead, they elevate these perspectives from the sidelines straight to the center of the legislative agenda. And now, again, for the sensitive men listening, I'm not saying it's all men. I'm simply saying the ones in power aren't doing a good enough job. We need all genders involved, all races involved. All of our people need to be accurately accurately represented in the legislative process, in the political arena. Because guess what? This country isn't just for straight white cis men. Sorry. It's just not. Other people deserve representation also. And research actually shows that when women are involved, collaborative governance happens. Women are more likely to collaborate across party lines, building coalitions that focus on solutions rather than scoring partisan points. And, not sorry to say this, they're often less driven by ego or political theater and more motivated by tangible, positive outcomes for the communities that they serve. Imagine that. Politics driven by progress, not power trips. I mean, we kind of have the ultimate egomaniac in charge of this country right now. And if you cannot see that, stop listening to this episode because you will get nothing from it. If you cannot admit that the Orange Man is on his revenge tour, why are you listening to me? Just don't, please. Don't. Because I don't think that you are in a place where you can learn from anything that I'm saying. Not that I'm trying to teach you. I have a very specific audience that I speak to, and it is not the people who want to oppress my audience. Okay. Let's see. I cannot today. I just cannot stop going off on tangents. Apologies. Let's talk about decreased corruption. So, there are multiple studies, including those from the World Bank and the UNODC, showing a strong correlation between higher numbers of women in public office and reduced levels of corruption. And again, I'm not saying that all women are fabulous, right? I'm not saying that no woman is corrupt. It just happens to be that studies show a little bit more corruption elsewhere. And it's not that women are magically more ethical. It's that when diverse perspectives are present, old boys club networks get disrupted, accountability increases, and shady backroom deals lose their grip. Corruption thrives in closed, homogeneous power circles, and women's inclusion breaks that pattern wide open, which is why I suspect there is a hesitancy for some men to allow women in these spaces because they want to keep their good old boys club going. And let's be real, though. Women in politics face next level scrutiny. Their tone, their wardrobe, their motherhood status, their hair, literally freaking everything becomes political. Meanwhile, male politicians can shout on the Senate floor, throw temper tantrums, and no one bats an eye. This, my friends, is strategic. It's designed to keep women questioning themselves, doubting their worth, and ultimately playing small. But guess what? We see through it, and we are not here for it. And let me tell you, some of these women in Congress are shaking things up. Now, whether you agree with their politics or not, give them the respect that they're due in that they are making their voices heard. And I am all for that. Now, we're going to talk about going beyond tokenism, like what we can actually do about it. But I want you to keep in mind that, yes, there are some fabulous female politicians out there and fabulous female candidates, but there are also some that suck, right? Because this isn't about women are better than men. It's, for crying out loud, let women prove their worth. Don't just toss someone out of your consideration just because they happen to be a woman. So let's actually talk about how we break out of the symbolic representation trap and move toward real structural power for women, not the tokenism, right? Tokenism is, oh, I'm voting for her just because she's a woman. No, I'm not saying that at all. For crying out loud, you could not pay me to vote for Marjorie Taylor Greene in any way, shape, or form. It's not because she is a Republican. It's because of me not aligning with her policies, her attitudes, or her behaviors. So, like, I'm not going to vote for her just because she is a woman. Thankfully, I've never been in a spot where I've had to even consider voting for her. But anyway, again, I'm not trying to say that any one party is better than the other. That is for you to decide. That is for you to figure out where your morals and values line up with politicians. I do not like being put in a box, so I do not identify with a political party because I tend to think that most of the politicians that we have today are nothing but corrupt a-holes who are ruining this country. But that's a topic for another time. So, how, my friends, do we change this system? How do we support equity in politics? Well, the first one is to back women-led campaigns. Donate, volunteer, amplify. If you can't afford to give money, give your time. Knocking on doors, phone banking, writing postcards, whatever the campaign happens to need. And if time is tight, use your voice. Talk about these women to your friends, your family, your coworkers, even that neighbor that you only wave to. Share their content on social media. Write letters to the editor. Keep their names in conversations. Elevate their platforms and be unapologetically loud about why their leadership matters. And then next, challenge misogynistic commentary. This is one that drives me effing crazy. I lose my mind. When someone critiques a woman politician's appearance, clothing, hairstyle, voice, or calls her too aggressive, oh, that drives me crazy. When you hear that, stop them in their tracks and ask, would you say that about a man? Then wait. Let the silence do the work. Push the conversation further if needed. Unpack why that comment was made and how it reflects systemic bias. Make it awkward. Make them think. Because change does not come from silence. It comes from confronting the bias head on. It's kind of like when I would have people tell me like incredibly rude and sexist jokes. I would just look at them with a really dumb look on my face and say, I don't understand. Explain that joke to me. How is that funny? I don't get it. Like, I don't get the punchline. And it makes it very awkward. And I like that. I like to make bigots feel awkward. So feel free to do that when you hear people talking about, oh, she wears a business suit, blah, blah, blah. Shut up. Just that has nothing to do with her policies. So move along. Come up with something intelligent to fight with me on. And the next way that we can help is to encourage diverse candidacies, not just white women, for crying out loud, not just wealthy women. We need to actively seek out and support candidates who are Black, brown, Indigenous, disabled, queer, immigrant, and working class. Women whose lived experiences reflect a wider range of realities. Intersectionality isn't just optional here. It is the literal backbone of a truly representative and functioning democracy. Because when leadership reflects the full spectrum of its people, policy becomes more just, more inclusive, and impactful. And it's just, to boil it down to a very childish expression, it's just not fair to not have full representation in politics for all of the people that the government represents. And then this next piece here, ladies, allies who are listening, vote every time, not just in the big elections. Your school board, city council, county judges, state legislature, these are the places where a single vote can swing the outcome and directly shape your daily life. These local arenas are also where many women cut their political teeth, build community trust, and gain the experience that propels them into higher office. If we want women in high office, we have to back them from their very first run, not just at the flashy national level. Showing up at every stage of their political journey with our votes, our voices, and our visibility. That's how we make the change that we want to see in this world. And you know what? We also need to model representation for the next generation. Let your children see women in power and talk about what that means. Share stories of trailblazing women from history and current events. Visit museums or community events that spotlight female leaders and encourage them to imagine themselves in those roles. Stock their shelves with books featuring girl leaders. Queue up movies with badass women in charge. And highlight real-life role models in politics, science, activism, and business. Normalize female leadership by making it an everyday expectation, not a rare spectacle. When Joe Biden and Kamala Harris won, and it was announced, I watched on TV, there was this beautiful little girl, dark-skinned, looking, I'm getting a little misty here. She was looking at Kamala Harris, and the way she was gazing up at her, and I know that there are some of you out there listening who know exactly this little girl that I'm talking about. The look on her face was just this beautiful, innocent amazement. She saw someone who looked like her. That's huge. That is huge for the future of our little girls. Representation matters. And I will never, ever forget that little girl. Never. Because it hit me that was probably the first time that this little girl saw something so powerful in someone who shared her skin color. And as a woman myself who has not always seen representation in important places, I know how impactful that is. We owe it to our little girls to make something like a woman achieving something amazing to not be so rare. I'm sorry, every time I think about that moment, every time I think about that look on that little girl's face, I just get very, very overwhelmed with emotion, because that's what the future looks like, my friends. That little girl's face, that's what the future looks like. We need more of it. Until there's no need for that look on a little girl's face. I want it to be boring when women achieve things. I want to get to a place where it's not so surprising because women are just rocking it all over and they're finally getting the recognition that they deserve. All right, finally, use your platform. This is how you can make a difference. Big or small, your voice matters more than you think. Whether it's your social media, your classroom, your dinner table, your book club, your community meeting, or your podcast. Consistently amplify the women making moves. Share their achievements. Repost their work, and speak their names in rooms where decisions are made. Normalize talking politics in everyday life if that's something that you're interested in. Normalize having bold, unapologetic opinions. Stop shrinking yourselves. Normalize advocating for power redistribution, not as a rare hot take, but as a standard, ongoing part of the conversation. This is what we can do. These are the things that we can do to help our ladies, to help our young girls, to help our children finally feel the equality and the equity that they deserve. All right, it is time for our quote of the week, and we are going classic badass today. Shirley Chisholm, the first Black woman elected to the United States Congress, once said, "If they don't give you a seat at the table, bring a folding chair." Hell yeah. That hits, right? But I'm going to take it a step further. Bring the folding chair, sure. But if the table is exclusive, elitist, and built on a system of oppression, flip the damn table. And then, ladies, build around one. One where we all have a seat and a voice. All right, ladies, here's your call to action this week. Research who's running in your next local election. Google your county ballot. Start now, not the night before. And then follow maybe 3 women politicians on social media who align with your values. That is the key part here. Who align with your values. I'm not telling you to pick one side of the aisle or the other. But engage with their content. Share their wins. Help with their visibility and their representation. And then join the Hint Hive Facebook group and answer this question. What would a political system built by and for women actually look like? Not just in structure, but in values, process, and outcomes. And then Participate in the discussion question that I pose in there each week. And finally, share this episode with 3 women who need a reminder of their own power. Because ladies, we rise together, don't we? All right, queens, until next time, keep raising your voice, keep taking up space, and never, ever apologize for your power. You were born for this. Stay fierce, ladies. This podcast is powered by Kelly Hint Empowerment Coaching, as well as Kelly M. Hint LMHC and The Cranky Counselor. To find out more about coaching services, head over to CoachKellyHint.com. If you'd like to know more about the psychotherapy services I offer to individuals within the state of New York, you can check out KellyMHint.com. And if you'd like to learn more about aromatherapy, you can check out TheCrankyCounselor.com.